It's time for Extra Point with your host, Phil Jones.
All right, guys, welcome in. It's another week, albeit a day later than we normally come to you guys because of the Labor Day holiday. But it is another week of talking high school football here at ITG Next Georgia. Extra Point with Phil Jones. And, of course, I've got with me Miss Producer, Mazzani Matthews. What's up, Mazzani?
Hello, everybody. I hope you guys had a great Labor Day. It's nice to be back on this Tuesday with you, Phil.
Absolutely. I hope you guys as well had a great holiday, Labor Day. Hope you didn't labor too much. Used to be where Labor Day was kind of the, well, I guess it still is, the unofficial end of the summer, the official beginning of football season. I can remember when, of course, this is sounding like, well, I remember when we used to walk 10 miles to school. But I can remember when Labor Day, for one thing, it used to feel like, football weather. You used to have high school football, college football, and professional football all starting on Labor Day weekend. But now, of course, we are, 4 weeks into the high school football season now? I mean, almost to the halfway point. But anyway, the fact that it is here and the fact that we're talking football, we have no room to complain, right?
None at all. None at all.
Thanks so much, guys, for being with us. If you are new to the show or if you need a reminder, we definitely love to engage with you guys. We love to chat with you guys, and that's what we'll do. Of course, I'll be looking at your comments. Mazzani's going to be looking at your comments, and that's what the show's all about. It's all about interacting with you guys, not just merely talking to y'all, but we're talking with you guys. So, big part of big attraction of what this show gives to y'all. So, and we're proud of that. So, we're going to be here with you for the next hour and a half. Of course, our buddy Sly, Coach Sly, the longtime athletic director of Milton, joins us around 5:45, 6 o'clock. So, we're looking forward to chatting with him. He kind of gives us the little bit of the insight, what's happening up in the metro Atlanta area, of course, where Milton's located. We'll give you the kind of the whole scope of the state here in the first half of the show. All right, what were you laughing? Did you see somebody's comment? Something made you chuckle?
Yeah, I see a lot of people checking in. Of course, we got Obadiah Farley checking in. He says, what's going on, ITG? TCC checking in, and I know he's excited about next week for our up-and-coming game. But also, Michael Baxter, that was the comment that kind of made me chuckle a little bit. He said, what did you think of Boston College beating Florida State last night?
Yeah, that was, I tell you, look, these college coaches have got such massive buyouts. It's like there's no real job jeopardy. There's everything about job security. It's like Billy Napier at Florida. And so what? If he gets fired, you get fired now in college football. And I know it's not exactly pertinent to his question, but it's like, so what if we lose? The buyout is incredible. It makes them multi-gazillionaires. It gives them generational wealth. So anyway, but talking about the game itself, and the whole reason I brought that up is that FSU's coach Mike Norvell, regardless of if he's got a huge buyout or not, better be preparing for what his next job is going to be. Florida State loses to Georgia Yek.
Yeah, what?
Loses to Georgia Yek in the first game of the season over in Ireland.
Yeah.
All right, and then there's this big booster for Florida State who made some kind of comment about if Florida State loses a second straight week, if they lose next week, meaning last night, to Boston College, I'm going to eat my dog's, what. And so they lost. Well, now all of a sudden that person has deleted his Facebook account or whatever it was, Instagram, whatever. Anyway, Florida State, no reason really that they should have lost last night. Georgia Tech is a much improved team. But anyway, about all we're going to talk about college football, but still, that was a bad loss for Florida State.
It's pretty bad. I feel bad for them this season. But Cole Moore said, you could fire me for $26 million.
Listen, that's what I'm saying. There's no shame if you're a college coach. I'm serious. Ralph Friedgen was the coach at Georgia Tech and Maryland. And he gets fired, I guess, was it from Maryland? And it made him a multi-gazillionaire. And he posted all these things on his social media about sailing up and down the eastern coast on his boat. And, I mean, the fact that you can become a college coach, okay, forget about wins and losses. Your goal should be to become a college coach because you'll have it made, especially if you have a good agent that can negotiate a really good buyout, which the coaches we've talked about here have all done. So, anyway, all right, so let's move on. Talk about high school football.
Yes.
Our game of the week this past week, Brooks County at Cook. And let me say these two things. I have witnessed the best punter in the state in Brooks Moore. What a weapon that is for Cook.
Yeah.
He was putting the ball up in the lights. And as a former high school punter, I can tell you that's hard to do.
What?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I could kick. That was my thing. I could punt big time. And anyway, I did it ever since I was a little boy. But anyway, Brooks Moore is one of the best, and we saw it Friday night. Unfortunately for his Cook Hornets, it wasn't enough. And I will say this. The Brooks team that we have been waiting on for their coming out party.
They showed up.
Mazzani, they had it Friday night, did they not?
They did. And I was hoping for it, I know I got a chance to meet C.J. Lane at the game, and he's a Cook County Hornets fan, one of their biggest fans, and he was like, Mazzani, you bet it against us. So I really had a lot riding on this. I was really hoping that Brooks County would take the win, and they did. So I was very happy, and it was the team I was waiting to see, since the beginning of the season. So I'm really happy I got a chance to see them. We saw great players like George Lamons. Yes, and I see his dad. This is dad right here, George Child Lamons. Yes, checking in.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm pretty sure he was at the game.
Wow, what a playmaker, and really playmakers that Brooks County has got. We talked about, of course, Chris Cole.
Yes.
Goodness gracious, what a running back. So all these playmakers are emerging here in the second game for Brooks. Of course, they lose to Thomasville in week 1. They did not have Chris Cole in that game, and we saw how much he is a major part and a major weapon for Brooks County's offense. They sure missed him in game 1, but they welcomed him back with open arms Friday night.
Yes.
And let me tell you, weapons all over the place. And what about quarterback Junior Burris?
Yeah.
Kid was throwing it. I say kid. Everybody's a kid to me now, so the kids don't take offense to it if you're 17, 18 years old. Yeah, they are. The kid was throwing it 50, 60 yards in the air. He was dropped back halfway in his own end zone, and he launches a bomb.
Yeah.
Was that one to Lamont? I'm trying to remember. You guys help me out. It was that first touchdown that went for like 97 yards.
It might have been him because, Lamont's had like 3 receptions.
Yes.
So it could have been. He had 3 touchdowns as well.
Yeah,
so.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Moving out party. Phil, I think you still got it. Post a video of you punting. I tell you what, I'm going to go back and see. I actually won the region punter of the year. Now, we're going back to 1983, okay? But
that's not too far back.
well, some of y'all weren't even born then. But anyway, guys, we had a great game. We're going to have another great game this Friday night. Of course, the TCC Thomasville game. For those of you that don't know, it was on, and then it was off, but now it's back on again.
Yeah.
So it is our game of the week.
I was confused about that. I'm like, I just heard that it was off, and now it's back on. I'm happy that it's back on, though. I'm not complaining.
Me too. So. Thanks to the Thomasville folks for making it happen, and they're going to have a setup in a great spot, and we're looking forward to seeing this game. We were there 2 years ago for the Thomas County Central game as our game of the week. Now, Thomasville was just kind of coming back into their own, though. That was when Coach DeLay had just taken over, and Zach Grage had just left to take the Lowndes job, but he's now at Brooks, of course, as the AD. But anyway, Coach DeLay has built that program, has gotten them built back up ever since Zach Grage had led them to a state championship game, if y'all remember, I guess 2-3 years ago. So anyway, it's going to be a great game. Thomasville, of course, is our number 1 rated team in Class A Division 2, is it? And then, of course, Thomas County Central in our top 5 in Class 5A, which, of course, is just chock full of great teams. So, anyway, going to be a great game. I think it's got all the makings for a much closer game than what we've seen in this series, in this great rivalry over the last couple of years. And who's going to win? It is one of our pick 6 games of the week. Is, of course, our ITG Next Game of the Week is always part of the 6 games that yours truly picks. So we'll talk about it as we go forward and who I've got picked in that game.
Yeah. And I see here we have Kelly Mitchell checking in. She says, Brits County checking in. Love the exposure you guys give these kids. I think that's a great comment. That's very important for these kids down south to get exposure.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for saying that. You know, when we pick our games of the week every year and we look at the slate of games, of course, you know, it's there. We try to match up the teams that will have us, that will allow us to come in. And we obviously look for the games that are good matchups, you know, that we think are not just good matchups when we're looking at them in the preseason, but that are going to become good matchups, say, in week 5, week 6, week 7, on down the line. So that's kind of what we look for. But we always want to try to spread out the wealth a little bit. You know, have some South Georgia teams, try to get everybody around the state as represented as best we can.
Yeah, because we are statewide.
Absolutely, absolutely. So anyway, we are going to talk about a little bit more about that game. Let's see. Andrew Watkins says, I'll be at Hugh Mill Stadium Friday night for my Darty Trojans home opener. Darty loses to Valdosta Friday night. Valdosta, speaking of the Valdosta Wildcats, off to a great start. Now, they've played some really pretty easy caliber opponents. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. But going to ramp it up a little bit, actually a lot, as they'll hit the road to South Florida to take on Tampa Jesuit.
Yeah.
And Coach Matt Wallace, who we did the coaches show with, 3 years ago. And he's been there a while. He does a great job and should make for a great game as the Valdosta hits the road, I think, for the first time this year, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Rosser Sutherland checking in from Marietta on to Hillgrove. Boy, Marietta lost a heartbreaker to McEachern last week. And, Rosser, I know you were up there telling me more about that. Cole Moore says got to see more out of Valdosta. And that's my thing. And I know there's some people that like to say, well, why you got Valdosta in your top 10? Look, they just haven't played anybody of caliber yet. It has nothing against Valdosta. If they beat Tampa Jesuit, it's going to go a long way for yours truly, considering them for our ITG Next Top 10. And don't forget, we have our top 10 that we, of course, produce every week, part of our ITG Next Georgia newsletter. You can also see the ITG Next Georgia rankings as part of the AJC's composite rankings, where we, along with the AJC, along with 680 The Fan, Max Preps, Maxwell Rankings, and there's 680 GPP Sports.
Okay, I was about to say, is 24/7 considered no?
Are they considered what?
Like, do they make rankings and all of this stuff?
I don't think they do. I think they just rank players.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, but as far as ranking teams, like a top 10 or whatever ranking, that's just a few. But anyway, the ones that count, part of the composite rankings, and you guys can check us out. And I love it. I always love to see how we do, ranking teams with some of the other media outlets that I just mentioned. But you guys can see that. That comes out every Wednesday. So you guys can see that tomorrow on the Georgia High School Football Daily newsletter that my buddy Todd Holcomb puts out. Our rankings will be in there along with the other rankings that I just talked about. Plus, in our newsletter that comes out twice a week, you can also see our rankings and how we. I tell you, it's been tough because you've got certain teams that are emerging, and you've got some teams that have been traditional powerhouses that are kind of falling back a little bit. We'll start with that, talking about Colquitt County, of course, losing a heartbreaker at the Hog Pen Friday night. They lose to North Gwinnett 14-3.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of ways of looking at this. Everybody's been predicting Colquitt's not going to have the team that they normally have. One way of looking at it, for sure. But let me tell you, that Colquitt defense played well, holding North Gwinnett to 14 points. It was just the offense. They couldn't get anything going Friday night.
Yeah. But, you had Colquitt to win that one, didn't you?
I did. I sure did. And look, why not? Anytime Colquitt's played at home, they usually do pretty well. That was one of my pick 6 games. I did miss that one. In fact, I go 3-3 on the pick 6. That's after a 6-0 and 5-1 start through the first couple of weeks.
You did a
So
good
hey,
job. Great
came
job.
back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, great job.
I appreciate that.
But yeah, one thing that I noticed is that North Gwinnett, they were the first team since Archer in 2017 to hold Colquitt without a touchdown.
Yep.
So that's pretty big. So that speaks a lot to their defense.
Absolutely, it does. That was huge. So, all right. Before we go any further, the next point in my conversation that I want to talk about, and this has been something I have been really chomping at the bit all weekend, since I saw the score come in over the weekend, and that is about Creekside.
Tell us, please.
Have you seen?
No.
Did you see the score on Creekside?
No, I did not see the score on Creekside.
Okay. Let me preface it a little bit.
Okay.
Creekside Seminoles. Okay. They played Coffee for the Class 5A state championship last year, and they lost. Okay. And I caught a good bit of slack last year from the Creekside fans because early in the year, Creekside got shut out by Modern Day. Of course, a big California powerhouse, which, by the way, we have established a great relationship with over the last few months with some of the things that we do. Guys, we've gone national.
Yeah.
With the ITG Next brand. You guys can see these videos where we're doing stuff with these California, these Los Angeles area high schools. I mean, it's just a great testament to our owner, Mark Dykes, and what he's been able to do to expand our horizon. So let me just throw that little bit out. But anyway, Creekside plays Modern Day last year and gets beat 62-0. Okay? Oof. So I didn't rank Creekside for the longest. I just felt like, how can you rank a team in the top 10 when they get beat, that badly? And I don't care who it is. Now listen, I'm not trying to throw shade at Creekside. I'll get to my point. So Creekside this past weekend, they scheduled DeSoto, Texas.
Oh, and I see Andrew Watkins commenting about that. He said 70-0 was the score.
They get beat
DeSoto.
70-0.
Yeah.
Now, I applaud Creekside, and I'm not saying that, trying to be a smart butt. I applaud Creekside for scheduling these out-of-state games, okay? And gosh, I hope Creekside didn't have to pay for these trips. I mean, to might add an insult to injury.
Yeah.
But is it, I guess what I'm trying to say is Creekside, I mean, what does it say about representing Georgia high school football? Because Creekside is, listen, you play for a state championship. That's not easy to do.
No,
and
not
give
in
them their
Georgia.
due. Right.
Yeah.
And they made it to the state title game last year. But for the second year in a row, they've gotten, trounced by an out-of-state opponent. So what does this say for Georgia high school football? And I want to pose this question out to you guys, and I'm serious. I mean, and I have to look, at how Georgia has done overall. Because I don't want to just pick on Creekside, although those are two very noticeable lopsided losses.
Yeah, and Cole Moore is pointing out the fact that, that those teams were nationally ranked. So I guess you could say when you're playing, and kind of going to your question with how does that represent Georgia, should these teams play against nationally ranked teams if they're not at that level yet?
And see, again, Creekside plays for a state championship in the state of Georgia last year.
Yeah.
So you think, and again, Creekside is considered one of the top programs in the state of Georgia. So I'm not doubting that.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just doubting, where does that, and really I'm looking at where does that put us as a state? Because Creekside, again, played for a Georgia state championship last year. But they got whipped last year. In fact, that and the Coffee loss in the state title game was their only two losses. So I'm just wanting to pose the question, guys. What does this represent Georgia in the best light when we lose big games on a national stage like this? I'm just asking. And I'd like to look at some of these other games. When we have Georgia teams. Valdosta goes up and plays Massillon last year. Now, that was a good game. That was a close game, okay? Could have been anybody's game, all right? But Valdosta does lose that game against Massillon up in Ohio. I'd like to look and see how Georgia has done against, out-of-state teams. And I'm not just talking about, well, I guess we could consider, like, teams against Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Only reason I'm kind of trying to, qualify this is that I know that there's a lot of Georgia and Florida teams that will play each other.
Yeah, and it's not like as big as – I'm not saying it's not as big.
No, I know where you're going.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're so close.
Right,
yeah.
That's right. But I guess at the same time, you got to consider, like, Gainesville. Gainesville plays, was it Moody, Alabama. And I know that Gainesville does not play hardly any out-of-state opponents. That was the first out-of-state opponent that Gainesville had played in years. Mm-hmm. I think in decades, actually.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen a lot, but I'm just kind of curious what you guys think about, this Creekside law. I was shocked when I saw the score. I'm like, not again. So should Creekside probably consider not doing this anymore? I mean, I know they're trying to do it, and here's the irony. Mm-hmm. You're trying to do it to bring more awareness to your program, to give the kids more of a cultural experience. Some of them never had a chance to go out of the state.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah, so this is a good cultural experience. I get it, but at some point, I think you got to step back and reevaluate. Hey, do we need to go out and play these big-time teams?
Or, like, what kind of team do I have this season? Are they prepared for that? You know? Yeah, and I see here that Alan Clanton says, y'all got to understand something, and y'all can laugh or say whatever, but Mater Dei and DeSoto would give just about every team in this state that same treatment. So that was his comment.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, wait a minute, Alan. I don't know about that. I think if Milton played either of those teams, I don't think that would happen. No. I don't think if Buford played those teams, that would happen.
And not even a beatdown like that, or like a 70-0 type score,
right.
but a close game.
Yeah.
If not the Georgia team winning.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now look, if you're not, and listen, Alan, I think what you're saying is, yes, DeSoto and Mater Dei would beat probably 75-80% of the other teams in Georgia. But I think, again, you've got to be considered a state power to go play those games. Now, again, in fairness, I'll say it again. Creekside, they have been considered one of the top teams in the state of Georgia. They played for a state championship last year. Mm-hmm. So that should pretty much qualify you to be considered as a Georgia state powerhouse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a chance at winning state, yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm. That's hard to do, There's only 2 teams at the end of the year playing their 15th game.
Yeah.
So I will say that, but I just, man, I just don't know how that looks on the state of Georgia. Getting beat by powerhouse. And I'm not trying to pick on you, Creekside. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just thinking out loud here, like, should we maybe reevaluate going out and playing these games? Is it too big of a chunk, to try to bite off?
I think Nick Fletcher's perspective is kind of different, too, on this one. He says, I believe he's kind of agreeing to Alan. He said exactly these kids' entire family moved to attend those schools. And most times send the kid to live with the host family. They will always have a lot of talent. So I'm just like, do you think the talent is different here in South Georgia talent compared to, a school out in Texas or somewhere like that?
Again, it's all about matchups.
Yeah.
If you think you can match up with a school, by all means do it. But if what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, if it's a team that's stocking talent or whatever, and I'm not saying they are, both DeSoto and look, this is no secret. Mater Dei and DeSoto, those are national powerhouses, not just state powerhouses. Mm-hmm. Okay. But if you don't think you can be competitive with them, don't go play them.
Yeah, you gotta weigh the pros and cons of it. So
look, if you're gonna play the game, then you got to be competitive, and that's the key. So anyway, I think Ken Dunn said, what about the local game? So yeah, let's get back to what's happening, here in the state. But that is a state team.
Yeah.
So we did want to talk about it. It's worth talking about. Okay, and you're starting to see more and more of these matchups. Milton, we're going to be talking to our buddy Sly coming up at the top of the hour. Milton has gone and played in the South, in the Broward County Showcase the last 2 years. We saw Peachtree Ridge go down and play. So we've got Georgia teams that are playing out-of-state teams, but I guess it's got to be, you got to consider the matchup before you go play these games. So anyway, all right. So speaking of local teams, so Colquitt County, again, they go down. There's been the talk about Colquitt maybe having a little bit of a down year this year. One game does not, foretell the whole season. So we're going to see what happens. But Cedar Grove looks like what's happened to Cedar Grove is kind of what we thought. John Adams leaves. You've got Bo Walker leaving. Several of his teammates leave. And right now, Cedar Grove is an absolute shell of the team and the program that they have been over the last 6-7 years. They are not even competitive really right now. So Walton off to a tough start. Woodward Academy, who also played for a state championship last year, is winless so far. Remember, Woodward Academy was part of our game of the week 2 weeks ago when they lost at Collins Hill. Prince Avenue Christian is now 1-2. So, guys, this is what you call parity. And this is what we knew. This is what we had talked about before the season started, that reclassification, this is what we thought, and this is what I predicted reclassification was going to bring about to Georgia high school football this year, which was an evening out, if you will, of the talent of the teams. We're just not seeing the dominant runaway teams as we've seen in the past, and it's bringing much more parity, I think, so far than what we've had in the past.
I agree. I agree.
So, all right, who else checking out the show?
We have Stephen K. Wynn, of course, checking in. He says Cedar Grove is heading to Texas this weekend.
Oh, Lord. Who are they playing? I hadn't even seen it.
Tell us, Stephen, who are they playing? Who is Cedar Grove playing?
Austin A.B. Butler's checking in. What's up, Austin? Good to see you, man, from up in North Georgia. Thanks so much for checking out the show. Go ahead. Who you got?
Jeremy Williams wants to know. He asked, Phil, when was the last time Thomasville won a state championship? Can you remember?
I don't. I know they played for a state championship. Was it 3 years ago when they got beat by Fitzgerald? That was Zach Grage's last season there before he left to take the lounge job. But I probably need to know this before we go over there Friday. I'll say this. The fact that Thomasville is playing has a competitive program, that's important. And I told their athletic director this last week, Jeremy Raber. It's important that they have a competitive program because Thomasville is like Valdosta when it comes to tradition in this state. It's important that programs like Valdosta, like Thomasville, I don't know, Warner Robins, Northside Warner Robins. It's important that those programs for their communities, their fans, always have solid programs. Probably more so for folks like programs like Thomasville and Valdosta. It's important because football has been such a strong part, a thread of those communities.
Yeah, it's so strongly, in their history.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So, anyway, who else we got?
We have Chris Sellers. He says, good afternoon, Mr. Phil. Bainbridge Bearcats checking in. What are your thoughts on the Bearcats?
I think it's a rebuilding year for the Bearcats. I think they've played very competitive football. I know that the folks at Cook were telling us, I don't know if you were there with me, but we were talking about, Cook defeating Bainbridge 2 weeks ago. My buddy Dr. Mike McCartney, who, of course, is the voice of the Hornets, was telling us that Bainbridge dropped, I think, like 2 touchdown passes in the loss to Cook. It's just exactly what I thought and what Jay Walls had told me, Chris. Jay Walls, the head coach of Bainbridge, first year there, said, Phil, we're young, we've got playmakers, but we're inexperienced. And what we just talked about, what I just heard Dr. Mike say, Bainbridge dropping a couple of touchdown passes that could have been the difference in that game. That's what youth brings about.
Yeah.
Mistakes, errors, drop passes, penalties, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we've been seeing a lot of young teams so far this season, teams that they don't have a lot of seniors on the team or anything like that. They're working with a lot of freshmen and a lot of sophomores, so it's just going to take a little bit of time for some of these teams.
100%. Jose Badilla, what's up, my man? Jose Badilla checking in. What's up, brother? Good to see you. Stephen K. Wynn, our unofficial extended employee of ITG Next, checking in. And, hey, Stephen, you mentioned our buddy Trip Block. Trip has undergone some surgery. I don't want to get too personal. That's his business. It's not mine. However, he has undergone some surgery, and it is my business to ask you guys to pray for Trip. Let's support that young man. He's Lee County's #1 fan. He's a great young man. He's a great person. He's a godly man, and we wish him all the best. Godspeed in your recovery, Trip. I hope you're watching. We're thinking of you, brother. Been praying for you, and we hope you're doing better, man. Hang in there, and you can reach out to me or any of us here at ITG Next at any time, man. We always got your back, brother. Always remember that.
Okay.
Evan Reese says, "Go Mighty Hornets." Roswell beat Walton 42-32. You got Buford this Friday. Buford is about to have an onslaught of a schedule in their schedule that's going to kind of tell the tale for the Wolves. I just recorded our weekly Buford update, which you guys can hear me do that along with the Sean Calhoun Coaches Show, the Gainesville Coaches Show with Josh Niblett. I do the weekly Buford football update. And they, of course, are 1-1, are the Wolves, but they're about to go to Roswell, and then they have another big road game. They got 2 in a row, and then they got Collins Hill in 4 weeks, which is going to be our game of the week as they return home. But Buford is about to undergo a really tough part of their schedule. Going to see exactly what this Wolves football team is made of. Are they the Wolves of old that we've seen, or are they going to keep on keeping on? We're about to find out.
Yeah, can't wait to see how that turns out. I see here that we have Ray Yon checking in. He says Dodge County Indians checked in, and then you also have Chris Sellers. He says big game this weekend, or big not this weekend. Bainbridge versus Tift. Littleton returns to Bainbridge.
Yes, absolutely, and that is one of our Pick 6 games, by the way. What do you guys think about that? Tift County, Bainbridge. Well, Tift County started off with a bang to start the season. They defeated, of course, Griffin, but Tift County has fallen back a little bit. Look. No one said that Tift County was going to go undefeated. I don't think I didn't say it. I don't think anybody said it. But we do see an improved Tift County football team. I think they were off this past week, if I'm not mistaken. Tift County was. So, anyway, Tift County, Bainbridge. Man, that is going to have all the earmarks for a great football game. You can throw out the records. Can Jay Walls defeat Tift County, where he once coached? Can Jeff Littleton take his new team into the home of his old team and knock off the Bearcats? Got a lot of great storylines in this game. All right, who else?
We have Alan Clinton. Chad Murphy says checking in from Thomasville. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. You got to be so excited about Thomasville, your Bulldogs, and where they're at. And where they're at heading into this game with Thomas County Central. That's a big deal. Again, we've seen this game the last couple of years. It's been, look, it's been all Thomas County Central. No one can dispute that. But this game is going to be a good one.
Yeah, they're both 3-0.
Absolutely. Both 3-0. Again, it's one of my ITG Next picks. Of course, it's our game of the week. And if you're not able to make the game, put the word out. Like and share our link that we have about this game. And spread the word, guys. If folks out there that are not able to make this game, they can watch it on our Facebook and YouTube channel. We'll have all the action for you Friday night from Veterans Memorial Stadium, the home of the Thomasville Bulldogs, as Thomas County Central comes in. It's going to be a great game. We are excited to be there.
And then Nathan Lincoln, he says, Lowndes against Manatee. Who you got, Phil?
I like Lowndes. Now, this is going to be probably the best team that Lowndes has faced so far. Manatee, they're a ranked team in the state of Florida. I still think Lowndes is the better team. And look, these games are good for Lowndes. Build up some confidence. Build up some victories. Kind of build some confidence as they get ready, as every team does, for the region schedule that it's only a couple of weeks away. So I think Lowndes wins this game.
Wow, that's crazy to think that the region schedule is only a couple weeks away.
Yeah, I mean,
This football season is just flying by.
It really is. It really is. I'll be glad when we get some football. By the way, have you seen the forecast for this weekend?
The weather?
Yeah.
Well, mine says it's going to be raining a little bit. So
That's what I was going to say. So if you guys haven't looked, and I don't know what's bringing in all this weather, but Friday, I think it actually starts on Thursday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and even into Sunday.
Yeah.
Rain. I mean, if you look at the forecast for Friday, it's just raindrops. And it just says rain.
We're going to be inside, right?
Yeah, we're going to be inside. But still, point being, if you're going to these games, you better bring whatever they allow you to bring.
Yeah.
Most places do not allow umbrellas. So bring your poncho. But, yes, we're going to be protected in the visitor side press box. Again, they've got us already set up there, so we're looking forward to being there.
My gosh. We better get a Nick Fletcher. He says, Tombs at Rome. I'm guessing he's asked already. He says, I'm going to ask every 3 minutes until we get in.
What'd he say?
So, Tombs at Rome, what do you think about it?
Oh, Nick Fletcher. What's up, Nick? Nick's a big Toombs County fan. Hey, Toombs Bulldogs are playing well. Now, Rome finally got to play this past week. They played Carrollton, I believe it was. And, guys, let's face it. Rome, that program has been through a lot. Remember, they had the bus accident in their last preseason game. They had to postpone their opening game with the aforementioned Creekside.
Yeah, that was the Colquitt County Classic, right?
I believe it was. And so Rome has only had that one. Well, they only had the one game. That was their first game this past week. So they're trying to get into the swing of things. I know one of their key players, one of their really good players, was injured in that bus accident. Now, nothing life-threatening, but it certainly has delayed the start of his senior season. He's one of their big linemen. So, anyway, I say all that to say that this should be a great game. I think, though, Rome being the bigger school, I think they're going to have the advantage. I think they win this game. But Toombs, obviously one of the best teams in the state in their classification. So, it should be a good one.
And I see here we have Stephanie Danielle checking in from Brooks County. Go Trojans.
Rural Athletes says, hello, Phil. Now, I've always seen rural athletes. Who are you, rural athletes? Inquiring minds want to know. Cole Moore says, Christian Deuce Lawrence, running back for Thomas County Central, 16 carries, 199 yards. Also had 60 yards receiving. Cole, I want to talk to Coach Rogers too. So somebody's got to get me those stats so we can consider those guys for our top 10 performers every week. Basically, I have coaches all around the state who will send me their top performers, but with us only having 10 spots, I'll pretty much take the first 10. First come, first serve. That's only fair. So if we can get some of these top performances from some of these players like Thomas County Central, we definitely want to include them. So got to be official stats now. Don't say, well, we think he had 180 yards somewhere. No, you can't do that. It's got to be exact. So you got to have the number of touchdowns, number of, if it's a quarterback, pass completions. Y'all know the drill. All right.
I see Joshua Ross. She says, Houston County, one game at a time. Okay, so I know Houston County just beat Perry.
What a big game
Friday.
this was. That was one of my pick six. I missed it. And here's another team to look out for. Guys, everybody's been talking about this Region 1-6A, and Houston County is a team you've got to consider.
Yeah.
Both in that region and that classification. So, big win. Jeremy Edwards has got one heck of a receiver in Isaiah Mitchell, by the way. He did make our top 10 performers list, and he is showing out so far this year.
Okay, well, they go up against Warner Robins this upcoming Friday, Houston County.
Absolutely. Northside Warner Robins, and Warner Robins played this past week. We were up there, not the game of the week, but we were up there. Our buddy Flint Dykes was up there getting some highlights and getting, I think, a little bit of locker room action from Warner Robins. And so, boy, I tell you what, they love their football up there. A lot of great rivalries, a lot of great areas in the state, and that's certainly one of them.
We have Rodriguez Upshaw. He said, what's up, crew? Red Elephants checking in.
Absolutely. Who was that? Who said that?
Rodriguez Upshaw. I've heard that name before.
Rodriguez Upshaw. Yeah, he's a regular here on the show. Did he say go Red Elephants? Rodriguez, I hope you're checking out my weekly conversation with Coach Josh Niblett. It is one of 3 shows that yours truly does this year. the Gainesville Red Elephants football show with Josh Niblett and Sean Calhoun's coach's show with North Gwinnett. I'll tell you, surprisingly, Sean Calhoun today was not really down in the dumps or anything. He's like, look, we need games like this. Mm-hmm. We need these non-region games to make us better.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to hurt you, and it's only going to make you better. So I applaud Colquitt for scheduling this game against North Gwinnett. North Gwinnett, the Bulldogs coming down, and that's a team to be reckoned with this year. North Gwinnett, the Bulldogs.
Yeah, it's important to have a little bit of competition in non-region.
Yeah, yeah. Eric Godfrey, the coach, remember, he was at Parkview, and now he's at North Gwinnett. Speaking of Parkview, Parkview's off to a very slow start. This is what I'm saying. A lot of these state power, typical, traditional state powers are off to a slow start. And again, it goes back to that parity that I've been talking about. All right, so who else we've got? Ken Dunn. What about GIAA? Valwood and Tift area may be a battle. I would say that is Ken Dunn. Valwood, defending state champion, in Tift area, they hand, who's the scorer? John Millage, another loss. And again, guys, here's another example of a traditional state power. John Millage has walked over everybody in GIAA for about the last 5 years. And then you guys remember Valwood beat them in the state championship game last year? And that ended that. And now this year, looks like that loss carried over to this year for John Millage, because now they have gotten off to a slow start with Tift area beating them. So two teams that have defeated that state power John Millage are going to meet. I'm with you, Ken Dunn. I think that's going to be a great football game. And, Ken, are they meeting this weekend, by the way?
Let's see what we have here. Stephen Tate, he says, evening, guys. And then Obadiah Farley, he says, TCC, don't forget this Friday, it's a whiteout. So if anybody is attending that game and, for Thomas County Central, wear white. Got you.
Way to put it out there. Who's that? Obadiah Farley put that out there. Ken Hortman told us, answered the question, when did Thomasville win its last state championship? 1988. There's a lot of programs. We got our man on the phone or what?
It just ended, so let me give him a call right back.
Going to hear from our buddy Coach Sly.
Here we go. He's back.
From Milton. In fact, Mazzani says we got him on the line. Coach, you there?
I'm here. We're a little broken up a minute ago. I don't know why I lost you, I guess.
Yeah, it's just the call just dropped all of a sudden, but we got you back.
Coach Sly, longtime athletic director there at Milton, former athletic director at Milton, checking in, very much still a part of the program. Sly, what's going on, buddy? What's up?
I'm losing a little bit. So I try to call you back. What do you think, Mazzani?
Yes, try to call me back. Let's see.
Okay.
I shouldn't do that. When he's trying, I do that with people all the time. I mess with them.
Making it worse if I know something is actually wrong.
Ken says that's going to be in a couple of weeks that they play. So I want to ask you, Thomas County Central fans, what do y'all think? And, of course, I know Central fans think you're going to roll in that game. But Thomasville fans, you think you got a shot in this game? I like the way you guys are playing. All right, let's go try it again.
Hello, Coach Sly.
Coach Sly, do we have you?
That's a lot better, yes, a lot better.
Great.
All right, Coach Sly checking in with us. What's happening up in Milton's way?
Well, we have a bye week, a well-needed bye week. We're definitely banged up after the first few games, so we're going to go ahead and, rejuvenate, refresh, get a few things tweaked, and then get ready for a push.
All right, so I got to ask you, I was talking about this earlier, and I want to get your take on this thing with Creekside, Sly. And just talk about it as a fan. I mean, I know you're affiliated with the Milton program, but, what is so Creekside, I talked about it at the beginning of the show. Creekside is one of the state's top programs, okay? They go and they get beat by Modern Day last year pretty badly, top California power. And then this past weekend, they lose to DeSoto, Texas. Creekside is a Georgia state powerhouse, okay? They are. That's undisputed. If you play for a state title, you are one of the state's top programs. So my question is, what does it say, though, for the state of Georgia high school football if they're getting beat 62-0 and 70-0 by Creekside or by Modern Day and DeSoto, respectively?
Yeah, it's so hard when you play these games because you have to have a team that can withstand this talent you're playing, right? And I think Creekside has in the past, maybe this year, maybe the last couple of years, it wasn't a team built that way. I don't know. I'm not part of the program. I know what Coach Dixon and Dr. Troy does down there. They want to get the most exposure get for their kids.
Understand.
And they want to go ahead and get them the best competition. They're not afraid to play anybody. I love that. But, you have to be a little prudent when you schedule these games and know the team you have, right? Like a perfect example, a few years ago, we were trying to play we thought we had a team to do that. It never worked out. This year, we knew and hopefully stand up with them, right? But every year you don't have that. At least you don't have it, on our level. I don't think so. Sometimes you have a rough off year and you take the hit. I give them credit; they take it with class. But to your point, it doesn't look great for the state. But then again, at least they're playing for it to put it on the line. I give them credit for that.
Yeah, and look, I want to make everybody aware. It ain't throwing shade at Creekside. I'm not. I'm just. But when that is a national game. I mean, let's face it. ESPN's going to have highlights of it. Everybody in the state's going to be paying attention to it. And I say everybody in the state, everybody in Georgia, and I know even though Texas is a big state, you're going to have people there talking about it. I don't know. I'm just saying this is 2 years in a row. That they've lost. And again, last year, hey, they were able to survive that huge loss to Mater Dei, and they come in and they play for a state championship. Mm-hmm. So look, they did what? How many ever teams are in their classification? They did what nobody else except one could do, which was make it to the 15th game of the year. So you're doing a lot of good, but I'm just saying, these when you get beat like that in these state games, these interstate games, it just kind of makes me question some things. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't think and I know you're not throwing shade. I know that at all. I actually agree with your POV. I just think kind of my POV would be, maybe one every 4 or 5 years, you get a team that can do that, right, and play that type of caliber team. You can play out-of-state games, but when you're playing like we did St. Joe's that one year, right, and beat them, I mean, that's unheard of. They're a top 10 at their place. But only that year, other years, may not be able to do that. And even our teams were good, you need a type of team that's a veteran team, mature team that's locked in, and that's the key, to have that happen. And then Texas, let's face it, they're not leaving the state of Texas to play you. You got to play them there.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
Right. Yeah.
But I was just thinking that, I was saying a lot of these teams, well, lately what I've seen is when these Georgia teams play out of state, we're always the one to go far to play these out-of-state teams. We never see, Ohio or, Texas come out of their state to Georgia to play one of our teams. So I'm thinking maybe travel has a lot, to do with it, especially taking that size of a team so far.
Well, both teams agree on it.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm saying. If you're not prepared and if you don't think it's a good idea, I don't know. Maybe you have no problem. Mm-hmm. Going and playing these games and getting beat 70-0. And if that's the case, then more power to you.
Mm-hmm. And I guess what we were kind of saying earlier, we don't talk much about, when Georgia teams play Florida teams or maybe Alabama teams because those, they're so close to us. The travel isn't as harsh. Mm-hmm. It can be, but also, that's all Southern teams as well. I feel like Georgia, Florida, and Alabama teams, we kind of play similar a little bit,
right,
as opposed to maybe an Ohio team.
Right. And again, if you have no problem, going to play these games, and look, just like I was talking about, games like between Colquitt and North Gwinnett, just like I was talking about Milton going down and playing for the second straight year in the Broward County Showcase, in South Florida. I mean, just like I can talk about it like as good as anybody, because Milton goes and gets beat last year. It only made them better. We saw what they did the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. And again, in defense of Creekside, they lose that game and then they run the table for the rest of the year when they get back to Georgia until they played Coffee and they got beat. But that was in the state title game.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this is all bad. In fact, there may be some good coming out of this if it makes you a better team. Sly, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it definitely makes you a better team, no doubt about it. You just have to be able to mentally recover from it, physically recover from it. Make sure your kids know that's not the end-all, be-all. And look, you can play a team from Texas that's twice your size of school as far as numbers of kids, and they have more percentage of athletes. You got to look at all that when you're playing. We played in California, 5 years ago, the first half we freaking dominated Jay Sierra. Second half we had no legs left. We lost by 3 points, and no excuse we lose the game. But our kids just hit a wall. I'm like, okay, that's the travel, that's the time, that's all that catching up to that, right? So you have to take that into consideration. But to your point, you know, we took a mature team to Florida this year with a purpose to win. We have a mission. We have a mission this year, and we know what our goal is, and we're going to try to obtain it. And you know, with different type of team this year.
Yeah,
I got you. So, Sly, let's kind of talk about the state of football here in the state of Georgia. I was talking about earlier, just like we predicted with this reclassification in the off season, and Mazzani can kind of chime in here as well. You know, kind of what we thought we were going to get is exactly what we're getting. A lot of parity, a lot of evening up of the teams. You know, I was talking earlier, you got like Prince Avenue Christian, they're 1-2. You know, who would have thunk that? But again, they're playing a heck of a schedule. You got Walton. Walton is either 1-2 or 0-3. Woodward Academy, who played for a state championship last year, is winless so far. Cedar Grove, well, they've won like 4 state titles in the last 7 years. You know, they're winless so far. So, you know, and then and then Colquitt, they lose Northwest. So, and those are just a few examples of, you know, some of the teams that have, you know, traditionally enjoyed winning season after winning season. Is finding the going a little rougher so far this year. And we thought that's kind of how things were going to go. Not that we knew the specific teams that was going to happen to, but we just thought the reclassification was going to very much bring much more parity to the entire landscape of Georgia high school football. I want y'all to comment on that.
Well,
and you guys out there, comment on this as well for me.
I kind of have a question. Do you think that was maybe one of the reasons the GHSA did that reclassification?
No question. Fly?
Yeah, I think there was definitely some thought into that for sure. I think a lot of it to do with just the way it happened as well. You know, we talked about this the last few months about, you know, this preseason and what to look out for and the parity in the state. And you have teams like Cambridge are 3-0, right? And you have a new coach there. Tyler Jones came from Walton. There was their OC and brought a mindset to that program with a lot of different coaches, right? And then you have a team like Colquitt who kind of played a couple of not real. I mean, I don't know how good they were non-region games up front, even though the team from Utah came down. I think they're 0-3 right now. Then they play North Gwinnett, who's maybe a little more battle tested at this point in time. So they get a jump on them. I think, you know, Walton's played a tough schedule. You say PAC winds up losing. I'm sorry, they wound up beating West Forsyth, I think, in the Colquitt County, then losing over there to a tough team in the Carolinas, and then get beat, I think, by BT at their place, which may have been an upset. But now we got to play BT in a week. So I'll tell you, they're not a bad ball club, and they're highly ranked in that level too. So there's a lot of parity, a lot of things happening, but it's only a snapshot, you know, guys. You all know until they start becoming region games, it don't matter anyway.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that's a good point. Now, let me use another example of talking about playing out-of-state teams and where it did work out favorably for another Georgia team, and that was Grayson. By the way, look out for the Grayson Rams, right? So they played Dorman, South Carolina. And I was just looking at Dorman last week. I'm trying to remember. Is it Dorman? I can't remember their name. I'd just be guessing if I did. But anyway, Dorman, Grayson beat them 53-0. And this is a powerhouse team from, I think it's South Carolina. Dorman, South Carolina. 53-0, Grayson won it. So it kind of works both ways.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I know Buford played Mallard Creek last year and beat them, and of course that happens to be Grayson's next opponent. So let me touch on Grayson real quick. So Grayson played Dorman. They played one of the teams from Alabama 2 weeks ago. It was Thompson. So now Grayson, was that right, Asla?
Yes.
Yeah. And now they're going to play Mallard Creek. So they are yet another team, like kind of in the context of what we're talking about, who is like, bring them on. If we win, we win. We don't, we don't. They're out-of-state teams. They're non-region games. So what? So that is part of the mentality, just like Sly talked about.
Yeah, and I think this Grayson team is just we played them last year in Final Four, and they were tough last year. I think they're just tougher this year. Defensively, they got dudes that they're all, look at. I love what Coach did in that game against Thompson. He had to go for 2 to win that ball game, I believe, and he was like, "Run the road, let's get out of here. Let's put 2 in the end zone and get going." I mean, that's the mentality they have this year. That's a dangerous squad when the coach is like that. I think Coach Reed's like that on our team too. They're going to play aggressively and go for it and try to get that dub every time rather than, let's play for the overtime. Let's see what we can do. I think you see a different mentality by the Grayson coach this year. It's interesting.
Absolutely. Guys, want to talk about a few of the teams in our top 10, kind of the top-ranked teams around the state. Of course, Milton, you guys have a big win over Alpharetta. Sly, I remember you told me, you and I had a conversation, it's been a while back, I think. No love loss between Alpharetta and Milton.
Yeah, they call it a rival, but when you win 8 in a row, it's not a rival.
No!
Sorry.
It's an 8 in the row.
Shots fired across the bow, baby. I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, you guys just handle business against those guys, but I get it. They're a neighboring school, right?
They are, and in all due respect, we've battled for years with them under different coaches, and it's been some fun games. They have a lot of guys that have gone out and been successful. Our kids know each other very well. So at the end of the day, it's a fun one, but we've been successful lately, so that's a good thing.
All right, so guys, we were talking about all the parity, and of course I kind of gave some examples. Now, one of the things I was going to talk about, and it's something that I'm trying to remember who just brought this up, talking about Gainesville and Langston Hughes is kind of emerging.
Rodriguez Upshaw.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's something else I wanted to talk about. So we are, as much parity as we have, we are starting to see some teams that are kind of emerging, not really running away from the rest of the pack, but they certainly are flexing their muscles. And again, Milton, Sly's Milton Eagles is certainly one of them, doing a great job. Sly, let me tell you, I just think you guys have found the best of everything. Staff, players, there's just so much cohesiveness with your program up there, Sly. And I'm not just saying it because you're on the phone with us, but, I mean, it's just so evident every time we take a look at Milton.
It is evident. And somebody wanted to know, how many D1 recruits do y'all have, Coach Sly?
First off, thank you for that. Our coaches do a great job. I'm just very happy to be a small part of that. But as far as our players go, right now we have, I'm going to be guessing this, but I'm going to say 10 P4 and 15 D1.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, well, Philip, that's your answer.
There you go. So as far as some of the other teams, that are emerging here, Langston Hughes, look, they played for the state title game, 2 years ago? Yep. And then last year they finished 9-3. You can call that a little bit of an off year compared to, the years that they've had, especially that prior year. I guess you can say that's fair. But Coach Daniel Boone Williams has got them back. Looks like they're at championship caliber ball. They got Christian C5 Langford at quarterback, kind of making everybody forget about Air. Not that we would. He's of course talking about Prentice. Aaron Nolan did a great job there during his time now at Ohio State. But they've got a quarterback that's got everybody excited up there at Langston Hughes. They're playing really well. Gainesville is kind of emerging, kind of separating themselves. You kind of figured that Coach Niblett is knocking on the door, and he may get there. Man, cannot wait to bring you guys Gainesville and Milton later this year. Yeah. One of the games of the week. Can't wait to be there. So that's going to be a big one, isn't it?
Oh, that's going to be a real big one. It's at their place, obviously. So, that's going to be us, Gainesville, and Roswell. Hopefully we're the three battling for that region. But they're playing really good ball. He's doing a great job. And it's up there at their place. And that place, I coached there years ago back in 08, 09. It's a tough place to play.
Look at this Class 5A, guys. Okay, and again, this is one when we saw reclassification, Mazzani, come out. Everybody said that this class had a couple of what I call super regions. The 2 5A and 7 5A. Okay. And you can pretty much take any of those teams and, any of them right now could win a state title. Milton, Gainesville, Lee County is, of course, in the southern part of the state in the 2-5A. But Milton, Gainesville, Lee County, Thomas County Central, Langston Hughes, who I just talked about, Coffee, of course, defending state champion.
Yeah.
How about that? You got defending state champion Thomas County Central, Milton, and Coffee, all in one class, all in the same top 10. Yikes.
Yeah, some people here, Danny Varnado, he says, I don't see Coffee going to state as of right now.
I don't know. I tell you, Coach Coe has really got that program clicking on all cylinders. Just he's emphasized the weight training, the physicality so much. They're just beating teams down right now. So that's why I really like what Coffee's doing. But and then you've got Houston County.
Yep. Don't
look now, but Jeremy Edwards is got that run. I call them that run and shoot offense, putting up all kind of points. They beat a very good Perry team, another defending state champion. Okay, albeit not in 5A, but then you got Rome, who's coming back strong. I think they will be okay. Now they lost to Carrollton by 22 points, but joined the crowd. So anyway, that's just a lot of very good teams. Any of those, maybe Rome being the exception for right now, but given the rest of the season, any of those teams, aforementioned teams, definitely state championship material. What do you guys think out there? Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, T Battle, he says 5A is better than 6A this year.
Certainly not going to get a lot of argument for me. That's for sure. Sly, you want to comment on this? And of course, I know you're partial to your Eagles, but I know you take a look at the rest of the class. Man, it is stacked, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. And of course it is. We go down to 5A, and of course it gets stacked, right? We just left 6A, which was a gauntlet. It's like both 6A and 5A are loaded. But to your point, there's some really interesting regions, like the top three. You just mentioned the top three in 5A in certain polls, or it's from our region, right? Then you go to Thomas County Central region, and you got 4 of those teams in the top 10. Like that's to say that 7 out of top 10 teams are from 2 regions. That's crazy. That's I don't know what that ever happened before in the past when you have basically 7 of the top 10 in 5A only out of 3 regions.
And Obadiah Farley does mention something. He says, remember, Phil used to talk about it all of last year, talking about this off season. Again, didn't take really a rocket scientist, but you could see, and I don't mean to beat this dead horse, but you could see once these new regions were announced, the new classifications, you could just see it. Like, oh my gosh, wait till the season comes, and it is not disappointed at all. We've gotten everything I thought we would, and maybe even then some. So, Obadiah, I appreciate that. How about Eric Bryant? This is the beauty of the internet, the beauty of what the show is able to do. Eric Bryant says, let's go Trojans. Checking in on my Brooks County Trojans from Virginia Beach Sheriff's Office.
Yeah.
I love that, man. And thanks for wearing the uniform, Eric, and thanks so much for checking us out from Virginia. I love it. Absolutely love that. All right, who else we got
we have
checking in?
Lakeisha Esther. She said TCC High School is definitely championship material. Every game we get better. I'm so excited for Friday.
Not going to doubt that. Oh, you should be. And we can't wait either, Lakeisha. We're going to be there for sure. Real quick, our buddy Kerry Claiborne checking in. He is the voice of the Buford Wolves, voice of the Gwinnett Stripers, and I think Georgia Tech baseball, and anybody else that will put a microphone in front of him. Kerry Claiborne says the top 10 in 5A may be better overall than the top 10 in 6A, but the middle and lower tier in 6A is much deeper than 5A. I think, it's a pretty good argument on both sides, Kerry, but you make some good points there for sure. This is what I was talking about, parity. I mean, look at that top 10 I just announced, like in 5A. There's no weak links there. Not that there would be in the top 10. I get that. But many years we've seen, Sly, and chime in here with me, and Mazzani, usually in most seasons, when you look at your top 10, and I'm talking about from start to finish, you can identify four, maybe five true state champion contenders. Mm-hmm. And the others are not just filler and talented teams, but I'm talking about separating the real championship teams from those that are maybe a little bit more removed from that. But I don't think there's really much of that at all, especially in what we've talked about with 6A and 5A. What do y'all think about that?
Yeah, like last week we were saying, it's really a toss-up between all of these teams. Like, each team has a chance to grab state, you know, and I feel like we're going to really get to see what these teams have, especially when we start region matchups.
Sly?
Yeah, I agree. I think, to your point, there's 7 or 8 teams in both classifications that can play for that title, right? And that's definitely probably almost twice the norm if you think about it. You usually have 4, maybe 5, to your point, Phil. So there's definitely not more parity. I think it's deeper for sure. And it comes down to, I say it every year, you know, people say, what does it take to win a state championship? Well, obviously you have to have the Johnnies and Joes and the coaches, but you need to have the bracket, right? And you have to get that bracketology going in your favor, the coin toss going in your favor. You need to stay healthy. All those matter. You get one injury in one of those teams or 2 injuries, and that can flip this whole thing. And I think that's where every coach loses sleep. You know, when like this week is a bye week, we're trying to get healed up. We're trying to make sure we're good to go. You know, because then we're making the push. We got to go against BT, who's is number 2 or 3 in 4A, I think, or something like that. Like, I mean, it doesn't get any easier. So, to your point, it's deep, and it's Georgia football. Let's face it, it's Georgia football. It's one of the best in the country. And that's where we're all here to play this game and coach this game.
Yeah, I agree with Coach Sly, especially like when he was talking about players having injuries. That was very apparent with Brooks County earlier this season. You know, when you said Chris Cole, they were missing him, the first game? Was it their first game, first or second game?
Who's that?
Brooks County, Chris Cole.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that was very evident. And then, you know, just this past week when we were at the Hornets Nest, Brooks County against Cook County, we were able to see Chris Cole come back and play, and that was the Brooks County team that we have been waiting for the whole season, right?
Exactly.
So far. So injury does play a huge part in it, like Coach Sly was saying.
100%. What some playmakers, you know, that Brooks, you know, showed out Friday night. By the way, I do want to add this too. So many things I took away from Friday night. What a beautiful new stadium.
Yeah, the press box is nice too.
Press box was nice, but that whole venue, guys, if you have not watched a game at Cook's brand new stadium, Veterans Memorial Stadium at Cook High School, I was blown away.
Yes, very nice stadium, very nice field. And then they have the Cook's Cafe. That's what they call their.
Yeah, I mean, the for a Class 2A school, I couldn't believe how big that place is. I don't know how much it'll hold, how many people it'll hold. It'll hold a lot. And I'll tell you one way to find out. And you may know where I'm going with this. When you're up in the press box, guys, and when it takes you, it feels like you're walking a country mile from the floor of the stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Until you get to the press box up top. There are some stadiums that are a hop, skip, and jump. Okay, not a big deal. I mean, Cook is one of those places, especially when you're carrying equipment. Yeah. You got to stop about halfway and catch your breath.
No, seriously.
Huh?
Yes, and that's why I was trying to limit myself from, going to the bathroom, coming back up, going to the, get food and coming back up. I was like, I think I'm going to stay up here.
And speaking of that, Sly, so what do you think? So the stadiums that I think, and for some comic relief here, where, you go from one zip code to another. From the top to the bottom. Is it James Hallman Stadium that are home to the schools up there around Stone Mountain? Cedar Grove. Come on, help me out here.
Yes. Hoffer Stadium, you talking about?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. That thing is I think it's the biggest high school stadium. Sandy Creek is home, plays their home games there.
Yes.
Sandy Creek, Tucker, MLK, mentioned Cedar Grove. Yeah.
Like the Clarkson area over there. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It is so big you can see Stone Mountain from the press box.
Really?
Oh, you got to dial one. phone call between the field and the press.
I love it. We can make those jokes all day, man. It is just a huge place. McConnell Talbert Stadium at Warner Robins, for those of you that have ever been there, it's that way. Again, it's you literally go from one city to the next. From the top to the bottom. I mean, it's like just unbelievable. These big stadiums.
It's a nice workout.
Boy, it is that.
I think, Phil, you, Mazzani, what you need to do is every week when you go to these games, try their food and start doing like a little food tasting competition. Like, maybe rate the food at the stadium, whether it be same burgers or wings or whatever they have as a specialty, kind of like they do on Saturday game day. I think it'd be cool if you guys started doing it. I think that'd be neat to see what your thought process was on different food at different stadiums. So I know, I live for food, all right? So
Here, brother. I'll tell you this. So far,
I know what you're about to say.
Yeah, the early favorite. And listen, so there's two different ways to address that, Sly. Okay, so you've got. I guess you're talking about the standard like football, like the standard concession stand fare, right?
Mm-hmm. Lately, we haven't been eating that.
Sly, is that kind of where you're going?
correct.
Okay, so you've got that part of it. Okay, now you've also got the other part of this is something I have talked about before. A lot of these teams feed the press. Okay, they will have food like catered to the press box. Okay, and I've talked about the schools who really do a great job of that. Some better than others. Some don't feed you at all, and that's cool. Usually they'll let you go down and get a hamburger from the concession stand. But I'll tell you this: Cook has the early 2024 lead.
Yeah.
Sly, listen to this. What me and Mazzani were treated to. Prime rib, baked potato,
Yeah, what else?
and green beans that were the best green beans I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, they were
Right
really
up there.
good. They were close.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So, yes, Cook, it gets and only this prime rib was, you could tell it was just cooked slow and just.
I was not expecting that.
I was not expecting it either. But so far, Cook gets the big thumbs up. Great stadium, great press box fare, great food fare. But I'm with you, brother, and I'm going to start doing that, Sly. I promise you that from this point on, every Monday, Mazzani and I will bring our food ratings to the show.
But we can't forget about Stephen K. Wynn and his pound cake.
Oh, of course not.
Yes,
no,
I just saw his comment here. But yes, the best pound, the best pound.
Let me tell you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Now, see, this is part of what I'm saying. So Stephen is a fan, okay? So that's another part of it. What fans bring. It's like Stephen Tate at Coffee. Stephen is a fan, but let me tell you, those guys at Coffee, they don't just tailgate, okay? They bring out a smorgasbord of food. So, yes, Stephen K. Wynn, by the way, Stephen gave us, on behalf of his wife, a freshly baked, still warm pound cake.
That's awesome.
Oh, my gosh. I had to share it with the press box because there was no way. Yeah. Oh, it was unbelievable. But look, that is a big – hey, seriously, isn't that a big part of Friday Night Football? And I'll say this just to add to it. I was sitting there Friday night, and, I was looking down at where the hamburgers were being cooked, and I thought, this is what makes high school football so great, where you're able to see these guys cooking the burgers early before most people get to the stadium, and they're getting ready, to feed the hundreds of football fans that are coming in. But there's nowhere else you're going to get that.
No, it's
from Friday night high school football. Exactly.
Yeah, it all plays into the atmosphere, and then you realize that it's so many moving parts in football season. From just even the small roles that people help out to help feed the fans and the players throughout the season. You just start seeing all these roles come together, and really, they come together to make this big event, a football game, which is for the kids and for the fans. So it's really a beautiful thing.
You're right. When you take into account the law enforcement that are out there, the fans, the folks working the concession stands,
a lot of volunteers.
There are, as you said, a lot of moving parts that go into make a high school football game. And I'll say this and we'll move on. Okay, this is something else I thought about. Like this beautiful stadium that the Cook County Hornets call home. And you can say this for every football team, every program in the state. You want to really understand how big high school football is? This is what illustrates it. That big stadium, I'm sure millions of dollars went into building it, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars went into building it. That stadium, and I understand other sports are going to use it, But for the most part, that stadium was built to house 5 football games a year. Think about that just for a second.
And how much money was invested into that?
Well, and how much money, how much time, how much planning for, to build a stadium. And don't get me wrong, it's very important, but it's going to be used primarily, and I'm talking about for football, 5 times a year. And yes, I know soccer, will play in these stadiums. I get that. But let's face it, Friday Night Lights happens 5 times a year. And I'm saying 5 because most teams, if you're playing 5 home games, 5 away games, you're going to use it 5 times a year. Yeah. But think about the magnitude of how big high school football is when you're going to invest that much money, that much time planning, and an investment into something that's going to be used 5 times a year. That just blows me away. Sly, you want to try to comment on that?
I think it speaks volumes of the communities we have in Georgia and the programs we have in Georgia and the fact that it truly is a fellowship Friday night, right, where people get together and they're hanging out. And they have community. They socialize in the stands, the fans, and, of course, on the competitive part of the field. I just think it's amazing. And I think that's what – you don't have that in every state. You don't. Now, let's face it. Texas has super, independent school districts and super stadiums, and there's other places around. But some parts of Florida, I'll tell you, and there's coaches that listen to the show, they have good crowds and good programs, but it's not a community. They don't shut them down because the schools are so close together. Another mile down the road is another school. They don't shut down for a game. You may get maybe 1,000 where we're getting 4,000 or 5,000 hour games, and then some schools are getting even more than that, right? So I think it speaks volumes to that. I don't know. What do you think? What do you guys think?
Oh, I agree with you, and you're 100% right. And I've had the fortune of being, calling games in Florida, and you do see and not picking on Florida, but it's just other states. You don't see any place where it's such a fervent, sport and just community-wide event like it is in Georgia.
It's almost like going to church on Sunday.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. Yeah,
well said.
People take it that serious. And also, I see down here, speaking on that, Obadiah Farley says, Phil and Miss Producer, will ITG do a meet and greet this Friday? What do you think, Phil?
Well, maybe not. But, Obadiah, I want to ask you now, and again, this is kind of in line with what Sly was talking about with the food thing. So we always like to know, is there a local joint near the stadium or just within reasonable distance of the stadium that you would advise we check out when we're there? Even if we do, get the stadium, get the food, the stadium at the food, or the food at the stadium, like Sly was talking about. There are some towns where people say you got to stop at this place to eat. So I'll kick that to you, Obadiah. And
oh my gosh,
see what you think.
The closest thing near that stadium is Church's Chicken. We have one here.
Looking for something other than that, my friend. I wonder about the hamburger place, Obadiah.
Lakeisha Esther says Chandler's.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, where we eat it there, where we're getting us a Chandler burger. At least I am. You'll be.
Okay.
Yeah. You got to get one. Chandler's Burgers. That's what I like. These places where you're only going to get that type of burger, that kind of food
from that place.
If you go to that town for a football game,
Yeah, but I love meeting people at the games. I got a chance to meet C.J. Lane, and then, me and Phil got a chance to meet Stephen K. Wynn. So I love to put a face to the name that I always see here on our shows. So I love meeting everybody.
How about Rodriguez Upshaw talking about, and this is another thing, I love to see, speaking of the local law enforcement, different teams have these different escorts.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
It is something else watching the Lowndes football program get the escort. And the reason I'm mentioning Lowndes, obviously, is because I've seen it, probably more so than others. So Lowndes' band, it takes I think 13 of the flat-nose school buses to haul these kids. It's such a big band. And then you've got the football team, which is another 6 buses. So you're talking about a fleet of almost 20 Bluebirds.
Yeah.
And then you've got one of the biggest law enforcement escorts. I mean, they go in style. I'm talking about, multiple Lowndes County Sheriff's deputies in front and in the back, and they close down every town they're coming through,
Yeah.
shut down the red lights. I mean, it is something to behold. And I know they're not the only one. In fact, Rodriguez Upshaw was talking about the law enforcement escort that the Gainesville football team gets, and I think that's just local. Sly, do you guys do that same thing there at Milton?
No, we do that for like maybe later in the playoffs. We'll do a little bit of that, but really we don't as much. We travel separate as a band. We get there early. So we don't do that as much. In Florida, we did it more, believe it or not, because of the traffic. You just have to get through the traffic. You can't get to point A to point B. I did see in Florida that Hoover had a really cool escort from Alabama to Florida. That was interesting. The police cars were all decked out like the Hoover logos on it. That was kind of neat. But I think that's really awesome. I think it's important. It just speaks volumes of what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
To your guys' point, I mean, I've seen Lowndes firsthand. We played them up here a couple of times in the playoffs, actually twice in the playoffs. I think we're 1-1 against them, but they bring a bunch of dudes, and most of the deputies are the same ones. If I remember correctly, they travel the team year in and year out.
Yeah,
That's kind of cool.
They do, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You're exactly right. So it's like, in talking about these different things, it kind of makes me realize, that, different parts of the state, communities and teams have to adjust because, Valdosta is pretty much, you've got Valwood, Valdosta, Lowndes.
Mm-hmm.
But up in the Atlanta area where Sly, of course, and Milton's a part of, it's tough because you got these communities just sitting right on top of each other.
Yeah.
And I know I used to live in Forsyth County, okay, and, of course, it's only grown since then. But when I lived in Forsyth County, you had Forsyth Central, North Forsyth, South Forsyth, and I think West Forsyth was just being built when I moved away. But I guess my point is that you just don't have that connection like you do down here. However, Milton has certainly carved out a great following and a niche. And Sly, I want you to talk a little bit about that for the folks that may not understand that. How do you overcome that? And what's the difference, say, between, you guys winning in, say, an Alpharetta, for example? Because Alpharetta's a big town, and I mean, they're a bigger school. But how do you, I guess it's survival of the fittest there or whatever. But talk about the battle that goes into trying to outdo the others in terms of fielding a competitive team.
Well, I think it's a brand, right? You have to brand your school. And I think, in South Georgia, obviously Valdosta and schools like that have a brand already over historic legacies.
Yeah.
We never had that. So we had to get a brand up here, and we called it the Empire. And we did that. We made sure the Empire included our community. And we had a lot of community events on our campus with the band and with, almost like a festival type event in the front lawn of the school. And we did a good job doing that and bridging the gap with the community and the school. And then we included them on everything. We included, when we won the state championship, everything was done with a parade and a downtown party and a championship party outdoors, including the whole community. Once that starts catching on, and then all of a sudden your feeder programs catch on, before you know it, you start building something. I think that's what we do currently in recent, because we didn't have the legacy some other schools have. And the ones that do got them, we didn't have that. So I think to answer your question, it was building a brand. It was, having a vision for that brand and executing it.
Yeah, that's definitely right. You got to have something for the players to want to stay there and be a part of history and feel like they're making history themselves. So I agree with him. Like, building a brand is very important. And building a legacy, that's what you guys are doing.
100%. All right, Mazzani, I've been talking enough. What's on your mind? What is there something you want to talk about?
Well, I see a lot of people here in the comments. We just can't get off of Lowndes band. Now, they are a big band. We were talking about escort, how Lowndes has a whole escort. And you're right. The band brings a lot of stuff on their own. As Michael Sorsen said, Lowndes band uses a tractor trailer to haul all their instruments. But then Colt Moore, he says, Michael Ward, they are not as big as they used to be, which that is true. Lowndes is a great band. I was in the band at Valdosta High, though, when I was.
Look out.
Yeah, right? But the band now at Valdosta High is totally different than when I was in high school. and it's growing. So I would say that is a band that's growing. And if you guys ever get a chance, make sure y'all look at the Valdosta High Wildcats. They're not listen, Lounge is not the only band in Valdosta.
Look
And
out.
then we're growing.
Look out.
And if you want to see a very entertaining show on a Friday night, go to a Valdosta Wildcat game.
They strut their stuff, don't they?
They really do. It's different. It's a different style of marching, but I say it's very, very entertaining.
It is.
And, just go check it out. I'm pretty sure you can find videos, but the best experience is if you go there to the game and see it for yourself.
I'll say this.
The best band in the land.
I hear you. I'll say this. I see more people staying around at halftime.
Yeah.
Than they ever have before to watch the high school or the halftime entertainment, which, of course, is the high school bands. And I think that is great.
Yeah.
We were just talking about the food and everything being a part of the tradition.
They're part of the atmosphere.
100% they
Yes.
are. I mean, you got to have the band, you know. And many coaches will tell you, we love our band, you know, and they are a part of our culture here. And that's at every school. So it matters. I promise you that. It matters.
Yeah, those kids work hard, too, in the band. And, I mean, they
Yes.
play
Oh,
all
100%.
They play all 4 quarters.
There you go.
Yeah.
By the way, Rodriguez Upshaw Sly wants me to tell you, by the way, Coach Sly, my daughter graduated from Milton in 2019. She says hi, and she says, thanks for making her go to class, Sly. How about that?
That makes my day. That's what it's all about. It's about just helping kids learning how to navigate high school and navigating those 4 years and growing. And man, tell her I said hello, and that's awesome. And I love to hear that because at the end of the day, we all had to grow through those 4 years, and I'm just a small part helping those kids grow.
Absolutely, boy. That does have to make your day when you get that kind of that kind of feedback, right?
Absolutely, it does. It really does. It's definitely made my day. Appreciate him sharing that.
All right, so I'm going to let you guys kind of, have the last word. Again, I do most of the talking here. So, Mazzani, Sly, well, what do you guys want to end the show with? Well, what's on your mind that y'all would like everybody to know in our closing comments today?
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for continuing to check into the show and give us support. And make sure you guys always tune into ITG Game of the Week. This week we're going on to
Thomasville.
Thank you. I don't know why that just slipped my mind. Thomasville, TCC against Thomasville. So that's going to be a great game. Check in ITG Game of the Week on YouTube and Facebook.
There you go.
Tune in. Coach
Sly, you get the final word, brother.
Well, I'm going to end on this, and that's a great final word, Mazzani. I'm going to end on this. There's been a lot of injuries in high school football.
Yes.
And I think we have to realize that these young men put their bodies on the line. It's a let's face it, it's a very physical sport, and we can't forget the fact that when these kids are out there, we call them kids. They're young men playing a game, and they're selling themselves out for that game for their programs in their schools, whether they're 0-10 or 10-0. So you can't forget that. I just want to thank all our kids and our team, all these kids in high school football, and these coaches that put the time into it, because it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's enjoyable, it's entertaining, but it's physical.
Well, we want to keep the young man in our prayers and thoughts. I think he's the Hiram quarterback. Am I right about that?
I think it's is it Brenham or Bremen?
Bremen. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. It's Bremen. Yes. Young man was tackled, I think, in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And he, last we heard, he was injured pretty seriously. Apparently, he had no feeling from his waist down, and that came from the Facebook post that his dad made late Friday night. So, look, that's the thing about football. As Sly just said, and kind of segueing off his comment, it's physical, and let's hope that young man can regain feeling as doctors continue to work on him. So
yeah, let's keep him in prayers, and I pray for a recovery.
100%.
But one thing I wanted to squeeze in here before we close out, Lakeisha Esther, she said, did I miss the pick between THS and TCC? So I just want to know, Phil, if you can give it to us, who is your pick?
All right, so this is very much a sneak peek because we haven't published our pick six yet.
Yeah.
But right now, and this subject to change, but I doubt it. I think it's going to be a great game. I think Thomasville has come light years under Coach DeLay. I think Thomas County Central, though, still going to be the team to beat. And I think most Thomasville people will probably admit that. But my score right now, ITG next game of the week, I've got Thomas County Central 31, Thomasville 21. So that's my pick right now.
Okay. We'll have to see how that turns out Friday.
Thomasville, y'all still let me in the press box.
Yeah.
Don't hold that against me. I'd love, look, I could be wrong, but you never know. But anyway, you got to put it out there one way or the other.
Yeah, you got to stay tuned for the rest of the picks.
All right. Guys, thank you all so much for joining us. I want to thank Dr. Kevin Collins, the Houston Clinic, for sponsoring our show, along with our friends at Pepsi Cola. So can't do it without our sponsors. Big thanks to Dr. Kevin Collins, board-certified orthopedic surgeon, KevinCollinsMD.com. And, again, our friends at Pepsi Cola. Be sure to grab you a cold Pepsi tonight while you're watching the game. And I want to thank Coach Sly and Mazzani Matthews for joining us. Guys, thank you all so much for all you do. Couldn't do the show without you guys either.
I appreciate you guys very much. Love it.